Hey, welcome to your first video lecture. This one is just about cardiac review. It's just to really get your brain back into thinking about the body and nursing and everything that you learned in level 1. So I hope this goes well where we watch the videos and then make sure right after you watch each video you go on and you post a question or a comment or anything about what you've seen in any of these so that we can have good discussion during class and really dive deeper into all of this. So before I start into the content, because I just love to be silly, here is a rap song. Yes, I know, about the heart. It's pretty cool.
Dealing with all things vascular, cardiac, capillaries, arteries, veins, all the same. Circulation is the name of the game. Taking blood from the heart to the cells and back. Dealing with all things vascular, cardiac, capillaries, arteries, veins, all the same. Circulation is the name of the game. Start from the heart, 'cause that seems hard. It's not hard to see. That is the most important part. The first step is to gather up oxygen. Sends blood to the lungs, back to the heart again. Next up, we'll talk about the arteries. They take blood from the heart to where it's gotta be. The biggest artery, the main transporter, right next to the heart, is called the aorta. Taking blood from the heart to the cells and back. Dealing with all things vascular and cardiac. Capillaries, arteries, veins, all the same. Circulation is the name of the game. Taking blood from the heart to the cells and back. Dealing with all things vascular and cardiac. Capillaries, arteries, veins, all the same. Circulation is the name of the game. From the arteries into the capillaries, all your organs and muscles become the beneficiaries of all the oxygen and nutrients they bring through very tiny vessels inside of the body tissue. And now the oxygen's gone, but first we got some carbon dioxide waste to take on, and it's into the vein and back to the heart again, and let the whole cycle start again. Taking blood from the heart to the cells and back. Dealing with all things vascular and cardiac. Capillaries, arteries, veins, all the same. Circulation is the name of the game. Taking blood from the heart to the cells and back. Dealing with all things vascular and cardiac. Capillaries, arteries, veins, all the same. Circulation is the name of the game. Taking blood from the heart to the cells and back. Dealing with all things vascular and cardiac. Yay, yay.
All right. So anyways, that's that. So y'all should know the basics of the heart structure pretty well by now, because I know Miss Barrett does a great job of really hammering that into y'all's heads, right? I know she plays that song from Happy Days or something. It's not a rap song. It just shows the difference in our generation, and I'm cool with that. Anyways, so I want y'all to really have a good refresher on the structure of the heart, the function of the heart, the blood flow through and to the heart. We're going to kind of fly through this real quick, so make sure you go back and really study this on your own, and we'll talk about it some during class time too. So the chambers of the heart, it's really important to know these. If you don't know these, so, okay, we know the right atrium is where the blood starts, right? It receives that deoxygenated blood from the rest of the body, and it pushes it down into the right ventricle. It goes from the right atria into the right ventricle through that tricuspid valve, okay? So from the right ventricle, it goes through those pulmonary arteries into the lungs. Now, the pulmonary arteries are the only place in the entire body where arteries are carrying deoxygenated blood. So from those pulmonary arteries into the lungs, it picks up all that good oxygen, goes back through the pulmonary veins, the only veins in the entire body to carry oxygenated blood, back into the left atria, which the left atrium then receives that oxygenated blood from the lungs through the pulmonary veins, goes from the left atrium down into the left ventricle through the mitral valve. Mitral valve is the only one that has 2 cusps, okay? All the other valves have 3. The mitral valve has 2. It's special. It's also called the bicuspid valve because bi means 2, right? So from the left ventricle, then it shoots back out to the rest of the body through the aorta. Okay, so we know the blood flow. You should know it backwards and forwards. We'll get to it in a minute, but that's about as much as you need to know. Just know the flow, know these different chambers and valves and everything. Okay, it's going to be really important later on. So the layers of the heart are also really important when knowing the structure of the heart. And as you look at the names of them, you should know where they are. Okay, so the epicardium, for example, Epi means outermost, okay? So the epi, or the top layer of the cardium, and whenever you hear cardio or cardiac or cardi anything, think heart, okay? So epicardium means the outermost layer of the heart. Under that, we've got the myocardium. Whenever you hear the prefix myo, think muscle, okay? So the myocardium, or the muscle layer of the heart, is below the epicardium, but on top of the endocardium. Endo means inner. So endocardium is the innermost layer of the heart, right below the heart muscle. All right. And then we have the pericardium. It is a protective sac that encompasses the heart as a whole. Okay. It's a fluid-filled sac, and it covers the aorta, the vena cava, the pulmonary arteries, and all of that heart. It keeps the heart from really rubbing against the chest wall and just cushions it and makes it a happy, healthy place. Okay, it's really important to know these because as we start learning about infections and disorders and diseases, you're going to see them through these layers, and also in the valves and in the ventricles and the atrium, everything. Okay, so make sure that you really know these different layers and what they do, what they're responsible for, because as we're talking about the infections and disorders, it's going to help you know how to really diagnose and treat and deal with everything going on with your patient. So we already talked about the blood flow through the heart. You really need to know this, okay? There will be a quiz. There's going to be a couple test questions. You need to know this, all right? Not just because of the test questions and quizzes and everything, but because as we start looking at the disorders and infections, if you know that somebody has, let's say, mitral valve prolapse, okay? We'll learn about this later, but that basically means a floppy mitral valve, okay? So if they have a floppy mitral valve, that means the blood flow from the left atrium into the left ventricle is going to be kind of impeded, right? Because the valves are supposed to be firm and allow that blood in and to flow through in one direction from the left atrium to the left ventricle. If it's floppy, it just kind of floats back and forth and it doesn't really flow really well. So if that's the case, then the blood flow out of the heart is diminished significantly, and then the blood flow then backs up more and more and more into the heart and then out into the rest of the body backwards. And so this is a major problem, and it also starts filling up the lungs, and you can have pulmonary congestion, big problems. Know the blood flow through the heart. I'm going to stress that, all right? So coronary blood flow is different from blood flow through the heart. It's blood flow to the heart, right? So a portion of your blood flow that comes out of your heart goes directly back to the heart muscle through these arteries that are just, nested into the myocardial layer of your heart. So you've got left and right and circumference and diagonal. I don't care if you know all of these specific arteries. I just want you to understand that the coronary arteries are responsible for supplying oxygenated blood flow to the heart muscle itself. Without oxygenated blood flow, your heart can't pump. Okay, so as we start talking about like coronary artery disease and myocardial infarctions and things like that, it's going to really affect this coronary blood flow. All right, so just know the difference between blood flow through, blood flow to. Coronary blood flow. Got it? Moving on. So the electrical conduction cycle is what's responsible for the pumping and power of the heart itself. Okay, so it's initiated in the SA node, or the sinoatrial node. It's located in the posterior wall of your right atrium, and we also call it the pacemaker because your SA node is what's responsible for setting the rate and rhythm of your heart, the beating. Okay, so the SA node is where that first signal is initiated. Basically, your brain tells the SA node, time to beat, time to beat, time to beat. Okay, so that impulse is initiated. It sends that impulse then down to the AV node, down to the bundle of His, bundle branches, Purkinje fibers, and through that whole process, your heart is contracting. Okay, it's causing that blood flow to come into and through the whole heart. Okay, SA node can set your rate and rhythm at 60 to 100 beats per minute. That's what we learn is a healthy heart rate for a human, right? So with that healthy heart rate, we know the SA node must be functioning properly. If it's not functioning properly, we'll get into some disorders that can happen later on, but the AV node can pick up and do a much slower rate, but we want that pacemaker, that SA node, to be functioning healthfully. Here's just a picture of where everything is, and you can see how with that SA node, it's right at the top. It's right where the blood flow starts. And so that means that once that pulse is initiated, it flows through the rest of that system and helps the blood to just kind of push on through. So polarization and depolarization. During polarization, this is your resting phase, okay? Your heart is just getting all charged up. It's polarizing. It's getting ready for that electrical discharge later on. That electrical discharge happens during depolarization. That's when positive ions move into the myocardial cell membrane, negative ions move out. Mumbo jumbo to say the heart actually beats, okay? So polarization is like, oh, I'm resting. Depolarization is, bam, get it out of there. Got it? Okay. So systole and diastole, sorry, I get tripped up on those words sometimes. Systole and diastole, you're probably familiar with these words because when you take blood pressure, you take the systolic and the diastolic and you put them together, right? The systolic is that pump, okay? It is when the ventricles just pump out that blood. It is hard. So whenever you hear systole, think bam, contraction, heart pumping, ventricles push that blood through the heart, out to the body, systole. Okay? Diastole is where it's filled. So diastole happens first, right? Blood fills into the atria. The atria kind of fold over passively. Blood flows down into the ventricles. And then systole happens, bam, blood flow goes out. Whenever you take a patient's pulse, you're feeling systole. Okay? You're feeling that pulse out, pulse out, pulse out. Okay? What I want you to do is within this PowerPoint presentation, click on this systole and diastole thing, and it's going to really show you how that happens. It's really, really cool. All right. So as I've already explained, atrial diastole, atria fill, they fold over, blood flows into the ventricles, and then ventricular diastole is when the ventricles just passively fill, and then ventricular systole, bam, blood flow goes out. There's no such thing as atrial systole, only atrial diastole, okay? So if you see somewhere, maybe on the NCLEX or on a test or something, oh, it's atrial systole, there's no such thing, okay? Only ventricular systole, because the ventricles are where most of that muscle wall is to push out that blood, okay? I am going to go ahead and stop the video here, and then I will start a new video for just your first exposure to how to read an electrocardiogram. All right, so make sure you watch that video on systole and diastole. You can count that also as part of your lab hours, and make sure you go and you ask whatever questions you have about this portion of the cardiac review. I'll see you in just a minute when we talk about our ECGs for the first time. Okay.